Hey, what's going on guys? Ash here, and once again we are talking about Radiant Black with Radiant Black issue 33. So before we get into this review, big special shout out to Kyle Higgins who sent me an early review copy of Radiant Black issue 33 along with Rogue Sun issue 26, because if you read this month's issue of Rogue Sun and you read this month's issue of Radiant Black, you kind of get to see the story from different perspectives and how the story's intertwined, because with this month's issue of Rogue Sun, you had Radiant Black showing up because somehow BludMoon wound up in Chicago and he just dropped him off and delivered him back in New Orleans. Well, in this issue of Radiant Black, you actually get to see how that actually went down and how Radiant Black actually ended up in New Orleans, and how we get there is a lot of fun, because this mini low-key crossover between the two series that we got for them this month was a lot of fun. But not only that, we've still got a lot of big main plot stuff going on with our main cast of characters that we're definitely going to be getting into with this video, because there is a lot to dissect and a lot to digest with what's going on in Marshall's world right now. So the issue opens up with Marshall and Nathan's mum having a couple of drinks at a restaurant. And you've got Marshall just venting with how he feels right now by saying, look, I do one thing after another, and it's just one hurdle after another hurdle. You hit a brick wall, and you hit a brick wall so hard that you just want to roll over and die. And Marshall does feel bad for being an emotional baggage to her and airing out all these problems to her, but she's like, it's fine, it's good to talk about these things, because she goes on to say when Henry died and Nathan went back to California, she would just sit in it. And one morning she just woke up and says, look, you're going to do something with your life, you're going to go outside and do something, anything. And then she took up swimming classes, and she's doing much better now, it seems like. And that's great, and that's very relatable for a character, because some people, when they're alone in life or they don't know how to cope with losing someone, they would just sit alone in their room in the dark. And she actually went out and did something with her life, and I feel like that's very relatable for even a side character like Nathan's mum, because I'm sure that we've all been through that in life before. But Nathan's mum reassures Marshall that he'll find his way through this. He'll find his way through this, and he'll get over this hurdle in his life. And that gives Marshall the motivation by saying, look, thank you so much, it means a lot to me. Now, when they're leaving the restaurant, Nathan's mother does wish Marshall happy Easter. And even though it's one small quote, it does reveal a lot about this series with how time is flowing right now, because issue 33 is coming out in April. Easter takes place in April. So that means, much like what the Ultimate series is doing in Marvel, Radiant Black is doing the same thing. And with each comic dropping each month, it looks like time is going to flow by and it's going to be keeping up in real time. So if that's the case here, I'm definitely really looking forward to see what's going to happen moving forward, as each issue is going to follow each month of Marshall's life, probably leading into the new year as he does his hero stuff. So if that's the case, I'm really excited for it to see what's going to happen moving forward. So because Rogue Sun issue 26 came out first before Radiant Black issue 33, there was this conversation that Marshall and Dylan had, where Marshall told Dylan by saying, look, my mum loves me but hates Radiant Black. What do I do? Because I need people to start liking Radiant Black, because the entire world hates me. And you had Dylan give him that advice by saying, look, just keep saving people. Even if they suck, just keep saving them and they'll come around eventually. So that's the advice that Marshall took from Dylan at the end of that last issue. And we'll cross that bridge when we get there, because we're going to cross that conversation again later down the line. So we finally get to meet Marshall's mother, who appears to be this religious woman, it seems. And you have the scene where they sit down to have pie, and she begins to do a prayer because it's Easter, he's risen and stuff like that. But when Marshall's mother begins to do the prayer, this is where things get crazy, because she begins doing the prayer by saying, there are angels amongst us, and no matter where we call them, their names are numerous, the heavenly host, our guardian angels, Catalyst. And Marshall's like, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? And this is where you learn that Marshall's mother has been going on too many online forums. She's probably reading those Facebook posts that all parents read and they believe it because, it came from a quote unquote reliable source. But she says by saying, look, Did you see their different sizes, the cherubim, the Sephirim, and his 4 archangels, the fallen who turned against him, led by the great betrayer who sat at his right hand? But the light shines into the black, and the black will not overcome it. So, judging from that conversation with how she's wording it, she views the Catalyst, who came to Earth during the Catalyst War, as these sort of messengers of God, or these disciples of God. And Radiant Black is the devil. He's the Antichrist, according to Marshall's mother. So that explains the whole conversation, why she hates Radiant Black, because she believes that he's the devil with all the online stuff that she's been reading. And she's under the impression that God will send down the Catalyst again to deal with Radiant Black. And once Radiant Black is gone, then the faithful will be rewarded. So once Radiant Black is gone, I'm guessing the faithful will be raptured into wherever they're going to get raptured. So that is some crazy stuff she's been reading, some crazy religious mumbo jumbo that she's been reading. And hearing how that conversation goes down, learning about the Catalyst once again, or hearing that she views the Catalyst as these archangels or these gods, I could be totally wrong and be reading into that completely wrong. We probably will be seeing the Catalyst again later down the line. It won't be in the next issue, it won't be in the issue after that. I get the feeling in the next big storyline, maybe Kyle might have the Catalyst return, because it seems like they could come back later down the line, because they just shoot him away. They just made him retreat. So they might come back to Earth later down the line when they view Earth as vulnerable to attack again. So after that, you then cut back to Marshall being at home. He's hanging out with Ava, or Eva. No one's corrected me yet on how to say her name yet, so I'll call it Tomato. But you have Marshall sort of scrolling through online, reading a bunch of conspiracy theories. And one of the conspiracy theories that people have online is about the second Earth, and they know there was another timeline, and they believe it's still there, but they view it as heaven or hell. But they say that you get there by going through a donut shop. So I kind of like that. I like it that it's always coming back to the donut shop. And one of the conspiracy theories is that they believe that Marshall is the Radiant Black from the other timeline that killed hundreds and thousands, and apparently he's going to do it in this timeline, so multiversal that immigrants can invade and take over everyone's lives. So yeah, there's a lot of online nutters out there with this Radiant Black theory going around with the other timeline. Now, one of the things that Ava brings up is that apparently people in Paris, they don't even know about this stuff, or they don't even talk about this stuff. So it makes me wonder, what if there was a tourist in Chicago, someone from out of town or from another place, that got caught up in the whole Catalyst War and now there's a clone of them roaming around. But seeing how this is a big internet theory that a lot of people have been sort of floating around online, it's going to get bigger and bigger with how it's sort of getting passed around, because now Marshall's mother knows about it. And it's on the internet, so it's out there for thousands and millions and zillions and trillions for people to sort of deep dive into this community. So I do wonder what's going to happen when sort of this gets more of a worldwide effect with people all over the place catching on to what happened during the Catalyst War. Because like Ava said, people don't talk about this when she's in Paris, when she's in France. So makes me wonder, is this going to catch on to another part of the world eventually or not? Marshall then gets a notification on his phone saying that there's a Mothman out in Chicago, and he's under the impression that he thinks it's Mari, he thinks it's Mariposa. So he just runs out there, he has a bunch of mouthwash, he slabs on deodorant, and he just runs out there. He runs out there to do hero business, because he's under the impression that he can probably start flirting with her again and get to know her better. Because I think it's what someone said in my review for last month's issue, by saying the best way into Marshall's heart is by referencing movies like Clerks and stuff like that. So, but unfortunately it's not Mari, it's actually Clyde BludMoon, and we get to have the showdown between Radiant Black and Clyde, and the fight scene we get between the two of them is really freaking amazing, because we've got Radiant Black dealing with a supernatural entity that is way out of his series, where Radiant Black usually deals with a lot of sci-fi stuff. This is a lot of sort of mythical demons and creatures and stuff like that. So it's him fighting something very different in his own series, and I really do like that, because we're seeing him dealing with a werewolf bat with wings, so his gravity powers don't really work too much on it, and he's struggling to sort of keep it down. So while their fight scene is going on, you have Marshall contacting Ava, who's in France right now, hanging out with her girlfriend, and we get this amazing splash page where Ava is on the couch having a glass of wine with her girlfriend, and she's got her back turned to the side where she's sort of like being affectionate with her partner, but also she's using her powers to open up a portal to send BludMoon and Radiant Black back to New Orleans. And the expression on both of their faces, like Clyde's and Radiant Black's, is priceless. Like, you have like Clyde's eyes bugging out. He might be into it, I don't know. It's like hard to say, especially in the next panel with what Marshall points out. But it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun indeed. Like, that splash page we got, like, I kind of want to make that the thumbnail. That might be the thumbnail for this month's review. I'm not entirely sure yet. So Radiant Black and Clyde end up in New Orleans, and this is where it sort of has a different perspective of what happened in Rogue Sun issue 26. And I really do like that because we get to see the artwork, we get to see the angles and the point of view from a different perspective. And I think that's really freaking cool because we get to see sort of like the different, like the lighting, the shading and stuff like that with these characters. And I definitely got a kick out of that. That was really cool to see. Now, we don't get to see the cool fight scene in the trailer park in this issue. It's kind of brushed over. So if you skip down on Rogue Sun issue 26, I recommend go reading it because if you read these issues back to back or sort of like in between each other, like they kind of piece together the story. But the lighting is very different because the scene where you have Dylan and Marshall in the room in Rogue Sun, the lighting is really dark. In Radiant Black issue 33, it's much more lighter. Like the portal that Ava creates is blue in Radiant Black, not Radiant Black, in Rogue Sun, while in Radiant Black it's that pinkish color like her powers. So I kind of like that sort of different perspective with the lighting we have in both scenes because it sets the mood very differently for both scenes because, like I said, in Rogue Sun, the lighting is very dark, it's very grim with how things are drawn because you're having Marshall sort of having this deep conversation with Dylan. And here it's still that deep conversation where Marshall's looking for advice from Dylan, but the lighting is a lot more brighter here. So, like I said, I like those two different perspectives on the different scenes we get here. So on the final page, you have Marshall calling his mother, and he's sort of apologizing about the conversation they had the other day, but he says, look, come up to my place, I've got a brand new pad, let's grab lunch or something soon. It's a safe neighborhood, don't worry, I promise. And as Marshall sort of flies off and turns into Radiant Black, in the shadows or under the bridge, you have Jaeger lurking. And seeing Jaeger lurk in the shadows where Marshall promises his mother that, like, look, this is a safe neighborhood, you know that things are going to go to shit for in the next issue, especially when the next issue is called a Jaeger bomb. We finally get to see Jaeger in action against Radiant Black, especially with these next two issues, with the covers, with what's dropped so far. So I am excited to see Jaeger in action because he's called a Jaeger, named after a Jaeger bomb. I'm excited to see what Jaeger can do because this guy has been like lurking in the shadows for the longest time, and now we'll get to see him finally make his move now that he knows that Marshall is Radiant Black. Like, he's done enough stalking, he's done enough research, and now he knows who the guy is. So with that said, I'm going to bring this video, bring this review, bring this recap of Radiant Black issue 33 to a close. With that said, I will catch you guys later. Peace out, take care, and bye.